Hello everyone, Xeno What If here. Bring in Season 2 Part 40 of What If the Transformers Were in My Hero Academia. Link in the description of the fanfiction of this What If. Listen here YouTube. I do not own anything and this is not a scam. Chapter 78, Parents in Peril. The day was here. Parents' Day. And needless to say, the team were a bit on edge. But not because of what lied in wait for them when they got to school, either. The 1A students were all ready and prepped for that, especially after an entire evening of making sure their letters were as concise and heartfelt as possible. Though admittedly, they all had to hold an intervention for Tenya over video chat to convince him to whittle his letter down from 40 pages to 20. He wasn't about to budge any further than that, so that was an hour and a half that none of them would be getting back. But no, as far as the team were concerned, they were as ready as they were ever going to be for Parents' Day. What none of them were prepared for was the fact that nearly all of their rides were indisposed at the moment. Bumblebee, Bulkhead, RC, Strongarm, Jazz, even Sideswipe and Sunstreaker were all no-shows. In fact, if what they heard was true, almost every Autobot was preoccupied with something else, so their ride to school was less than comfortable. And why was that? Because the only Autobot available to pick them up was Optimus. And he intended to drive them all to school, so there they were, sitting in the dimly lit echo chamber that was Prime's trailer, rumbling in their seats which, while it had seatbelts, they still weren't entirely secure. It was to the point where it was almost maddening for the 1A students, but they kept their composure all the same. Because thankfully, they had someone they could take their frustrations out on. So, Roller, is this what you experience all the tea time back here? Izuku asked, his shaky gaze landing on the mini-con sitting at the control panel for the combat deck. Well, more or less. Though I have a magnetic clamp that helps mitigate moments like this. Roller chuckled. Kyoka grimaced, clenching her seat as she kept getting jostled. Gee, good for you. Gee, gotta admit, this isn't what I imagined coming to S school with an Autobot would be like, Kata stammered, this being her first carpool with the group ever. Trust me, it's a lot smoother. Mina asserted, her teeth grit together, trying to keep them all in her head. Seriously, why couldn't our normal rides take us to school like always? Roller sighed and placed his hands on his hips. Because, Mina, the other Autobots are currently on a global mission attempting to locate relics. That managed to pique Tenya's interest. So then Red Alert decoded another location. No, unfortunately. The decoding method is proving to be a bit time-consuming, so Optimus proposed that the other Autobots go out on scouting missions to try and locate them the old-fashioned way. Ajiro raised a skeptical brow to Roller. So, basically, you guys are flying by the seat of your pants. I suppose. Roller scratched his head. I'm not all that familiar with pants, but I guess that's as good a comparison as any. Just then, much to the relief of the teens, they could feel Optimus start pulling to a stop, which was capped off by a loud hiss and the rear doors of his trailer opening up. And here we are. Have a fine day at school, kids. Yeah, sure, we'll try. Mina deadpanned as she and the others made their way out. The pink girl had been the only one on the team who still had butterflies in her stomach over the whole reading a letter of appreciation out loud thing, and the bumpy ride to school hadn't helped her with that much. She and the rest of the group marched their way to the school, bringing them to Prime's cab section along the way, which was when she let her grievances known. Yo, Prime. Optimus Holoform leaned his head out the driver's side window, peering down at them. Good, you all appear to be thoroughly prepared for the day. Orion grinned down at them with a nod. I wish you all the best of luck. Before Izuku could reply, Mina cut him off, hollering, easy for you to say. How would you feel if you had to read a totally embarrassing letter out loud to the whole freaking class? She jerked her thumb toward his trailer. And getting ping-ponged around in that giant freaking box didn't help either. Denki rubbed his neck with a wince. Yeah, hope we don't gotta do that again. That was super hard on my back. At least it was air-conditioned, Shoto noted. I apologize, children. Orion lowered his head. I know that this must not be an easy task for any of you, but know this, I have faith that you will do well in this assignment. His smile returned, though there seemed to be a knowing glint in his eye. And who knows? Perhaps it won't be entirely what you're expecting. Ochako pondered on the Prime's words, finding some truth in them. Well, Mr. Aizawa is always throwing curveballs at us when it comes to his teachings. I suppose we'll have to see if that's the case today. Momo concurred before she and the others bowed to Prime. We'll see you this afternoon, Optimus, though if I may ask, could we take the ground bridge back to base around the back of the school? HM, of course, the Autobot leader affirmed, waving the teens off. Best of luck to you all. With that, Optimus pulled away from the curb and went to the school parking lot, only to make a beeline for the UA training grounds. And now, to wait. Things were relatively calm in the classroom when the group entered, all things considered. Everyone was chatting away, expressing their nervousness over the coming proceedings, talking about which of their parents were coming, the standard fare. But the moment the door opened, everyone's attention was immediately drawn to them, with one half of the class locking eyes with the other. While most of the team were slightly unnerved, though, Tenya felt no uneasiness as he greeted the others. Hello, everyone. And happy Parents' Day to you all. Kyoka eyed him with an unamused glare. Seriously. Dude, it's not a holiday. Hey there, guys, Ojiro uttered. Glad ya made it. About time, Zero exclaimed, folding his arms over his chest. What exactly took you guys? You're normally on time, but you're cutting it pretty close here. All of a sudden, Toru gave a small huff, the invisible girl sticking her chin up at the others, even if they couldn't see it. HMPH. Betcha their special rides didn't show up today. Kyoka's scowl was redirected toward her desk neighbor. For your information, Toru, we did have a bit of a hiccup this morning. And because of that, we ended up having to ride to school in the back of a. And now hold on, let's not fly off the handle here. Izuku ushered, stopping Kyoka before she went too far. The last thing we need is our parents seeing us not getting along, am I right? While again, no one could tell, Toru pouted and sat herself back down. Yeah, I guess so, but you guys should still count yourselves lucky. You know how awesome it'd be if the rest of us didn't have to ride the trains. Come on, the trains aren't that bad, are they? Eijiro asked. I mean, they get ya around pretty fast all the same, right? I'm not talking about how fast they are. I mean all of the weirdos you see on there. Toru shuddered at the thought, rubbing the goosebumps on her arms. I always feel like some gross, perverted dudes are watching me. Kata's gaze was sympathetic as she came over and pat her friend's shoulder. Oh, girl, I totally get where you're coming from. Trust me, I've seen and heard my fair share of incidents like that. Listen, if you ever feel like carpooling, I think we could work something out. At that, Toru's head shot up. Are you serious? Kata, that'd be so cool. Would it really be okay? Momo and the others, though, were a bit unsure. Well, I suppose, though we'd have to talk to Orion about it first. He's the one who usually gives permission for that sort of thing. I'm not hearing a no, so I'll take it. Toru cheered, pumping a fist into the air. That does kinda sound fun, Ribbit. Sue said, placing a finger on her chin as she recalled the previous day's events. Riding around in Sadie's care was pretty comfy. Sato sent a hopeful smile to the others. Maybe you could put in a good word for all of us. We could make it like a whole class thing. The group slightly flinched at the suggestion, but thankfully, there were some who were against the idea. I'd rather not be burden on them. Tokiyami piped up, keeping his eyes closed and his arms crossed. Remember, this is a team of professionals who are associated with the military that we're talking about. I can imagine that it's already fairly difficult for them to handle half of our class as it is. I would rather not participate either. Aoyama concurred, flaring his hand above his head. After all, I already have my own personal transport to school, thank you very much. Koji Koda, ever the silent one, merely nodded in agreement, while Shoji hummed at his classmate's point. Right, probably best not to keep them from their business even longer than they already do. He peered over to the half of the class associated with these professionals. You guys are pretty lucky, though. Just from our hero training courses alone, I can tell that you've exceeded in placed with the other half of our class struggles thanks to their tutelage. Well, I wouldn't say it makes that much of a difference, Izuku stammered, only to be spooked when Katsuki slammed his hands on his desk. Eep. For God's sake, could we stop talking about Deku's stupid friends? The explosive blonde shouted. I swear, it's all I hear every other freaking day. Bakugo. Calm yourself. Tenya scolded. This is Parents' Day. What would they think if they walked in right now and saw you bringing such a shameful display to our class? With an irritated growl, Bakugo sat back down in his seat, making it a point to prop his feet up on his desk. Ah, that old hag of mine can think what she wants. Not like I care or anything. Izuku's eyes widened when he heard that. Aunt Mitsuki is the one coming for him. Oh boy, this ought to be interesting. Clearing his throat, Izuku tried to bring everything back to a calmer level. How about we all just take our seats, huh? Mr. Aizawa's bound to be here soon, after all, and so, the entire class did exactly that. They took their seats and they waited. And waited. And waited, until they noticed that 2 minutes had passed after the initial bell and there was no sign of their teacher anywhere. Something's wrong, Momo noted. Yeah, very wrong. Ochako fidgeted in her seat. Mr. Aizawa's never usually late. Think he forgot to set his alarm or something? Denki suggested. But Eijiro shook his head. Nah, he's tired all the time, but never that tired, I think. Tenya, however, was pretty much in panic mode at this point. AUA. Educator late on an exhibition day. Why, a situation this dire could shake the very foundations of our school. As he went on his tirade, his arms began spinning like the wheels of a locomotive, making everyone cringe. Shiro, meanwhile, tried to calm the panicking president. Come on, even Mr. Aizawa's human. Everyone's like from time to time. But Shiro, heroes are locked into an eternal battle against a ticking clock. It can mean life or death for those needing to be saved, so even a single second of tardiness is a grave sin. Dude, get a grip. Kyoka groaned, only to notice Izuku deep in thought in front of her. Something on your mind, green bean. Turning around, Izuku met her gaze, his expression etched with concern. Well, it's just, Mr. Aizawa is never late. Even after getting his face beaten up by that Nomu back during the USJ incident, he came back after the day off we had. It was like business as usual for him, even if he was wrapped up in bandages. Kyoka pursed her lips, admitting that it was rather unlike their teacher. Yeah, you've got a good point. Maybe he got held up meeting our parents ahead of schedule or something. She waved her hand with a small smile. Let's not make a mountain out of a molehill or whatever, okay? I bet he'll show up soon. As it would happen, though, he wouldn't. In fact, the bell rang marking the end of homeroom, and still there was no sign of Aizawa. By that point, the chattering intensified, and Momo wondered out loud, isn't it nearly time for our parents to arrive as well? Yeah, not just yet, but pretty soon, Shoto affirmed, suddenly feeling a tad worried about his sister's well-being. But we haven't seen a single one of them yet. Hang on, my mom told me she'd text me when she got here. Keita fished into her backpack and pulled out her cell phone, only to see no recent messages. Oh crud. Mina suddenly made another suggestion, though she didn't seem too confident in it. Maybe they got lost. UA is huge after all. Once again, Tenya shot up out of his seat, moving to the front of the class. Attention, all. As class president, I will travel to the staff room to check if anything is happening. Please wait here until I return. However, before he could leave, everyone's phones buzzed in unison. Ha! Keita gasped, hoping that it was her mom, only to find something even more shocking. It was coming from the class's own group chat, and it was a message from none other than their homeroom teacher himself. Mr. Aizawa. He's okay. But, wait, upon closer inspection, the message was actually somewhat ominous. Ride bus to Cityscape training ground. Now, the message was incredibly blunt, yet effective. They could practically hear their teacher ordering them to do so. The Cityscape. Izuku pondered. But why? At that moment, a light bulb was switched on in Denki's head, as if his own quirk had sparked a realization. I've got it. Mr. Aizawa probably wants to hold the class, letter reading, and the facility tour all in one place. It's only rational, as he'd say. His point did seem sound, so they reluctantly began to move out of their seats and out to the front of the school. It doesn't seem we have a choice. Tenya resolved, leading the way. Be sure not to forget your letters, everyone. After making the bus trip around campus, the teens arrived at Training Ground Beta, the cityscape. They approached the outside gates and, to their surprise, they opened automatically for them, even though there weren't any signs of other people around. Is anyone else starting to get a bit creeped out? Ochako asked, huddling close to Sue and Momo. Yeah, kinda. Sue concurred, only slightly less off-put than her friend. More to the point, this sucks. Bakugo barked, his scowl ever present. Seriously, why the hell wouldn't Aizawa just tell us to meet him here in the first place? His statement managed to put Izuku back into thinking mode, which Kyoko once again noticed. Alright, what's on your mind now? She nudged him with her elbow. It's just, making us waste time like this. Does that sound like Mr. Aizawa to you? The brunette inquired. Tenya vehemently shook his head. No, it does not. I quite agree. Shoto also concurred with this thought. Right, everything that Aizawa does is completely rational. This seems like it doesn't fit with his usual MO. Or wait, perhaps this could be all intentional on Mr. Aizawa's part. Tenya stated, beginning to wrap his head around the situation. Everyone eyed him confusedly, though, so he explained further. For heroes, the call to action can arrive at any moment. This could be an exercise designed to test our reactions. That's possible, sure. Shoto said. We're probably just overthinking things. But then, Mezzo Shoji came to a sudden stop, with one of his many dupli arms transforming into a nose as he caught a whiff of something. Wait, hold on. Does anyone else smell gasoline? His question made the students take stock of their surroundings, sniffing their air where they did indeed get the faintest hint of gas. Maybe it's a fake pile up somewhere further in. Denki guessed. Ya know, for training purpose. Iee. Unfortunately, his presumption was drowned out by a loud, shrill scream that came from around the next bend, which made all of the students jump in shock. What was that? Toru stammered, putting her guard up. Before long, several more cries could be heard joining the scream, and by that point, the smell of gas was getting much stronger. All of this made Izuku pick up the pace, prompting the others to do so as well. It came from down here. Come on. They rounded the next corner, and what they saw just down that street left them all dumbfounded. Wah. The hell is all of this? Eijiro exclaimed. Before them laid a cleared lot, the buildings that had once occupied the space having been smashed to craggy piles of rubble on either side, blocking off two other streets. In the middle of this lot was a massive pit, probably around 20 meters in diameter, with a large cubic cage that seemed to be floating on a small platform above its center. Upon closer inspection, though, the teens saw that the cage was instead balancing on a precarious, slender tower, shaped almost like an apple core after the rest had been eaten away. And most shocking of all were the people who were screaming inside the cage, that being, their parents. Ochako's eyes widened in horror. Dad! Ochako! Ogura Uraraka exclaimed, meeting his daughter's eyes. Mom! Izuku, Kyoka and Keita all shouted simultaneously. Tenya and Momo had also spotted their own moms as well. Mother! Kids! Inko cried out, frantically waving her hand outside the bars with Mikajiro, Tae Iida, Yua Yaoyorozu, and Krista Kiryu joining her. It was then that Shoto's eyes widened, seeing that his sister was in there with them, too. Fuyumi. Shoto. The white-haired woman gripped the bars, her eyes full of fear. Please, help us. The entirety of Class 1A wasted no time in scampering toward the edge of the pit, where the stench of gas quickly became quite pungent. Peering over the edge with her fingers clamped over her nose, Ochako grimaced at the sight of the layer of stagnant liquid just 8 or 9 meters below. Yek, is this really all gasoline? How in the world did this happen? Momo exclaimed. And where's Mr. Aizawa? He's the one who told us to come in the first place. Just then, however, a cold, mechanical voice ran out to answer the panicked students' questions. Aizawa is down for a nap. A nice dirt nap. Despite the artificial tone, the words were practically filled with malice, and it was enough to make the students fear the worst. Dirt nap. Shiro repeated. Don't tell me, Sato uttered, clutching at his shirt at the unthinkable. It can't be. Denki denied, playing it all off as a joke. Har har, very funny, but April Fool's Day was a long time ago. So whoever you are, you'd better show yourself. The metallic voice piped up again. Calm yourselves. You're free to think this is a joke, but be aware that there are hostages in play. It didn't take Izuku long to figure out who the hostages were. He had already been subjected to one parental kidnapping this month, so that was obvious. At least this time I know exactly where my mother is. Compared to Silas, whoever this guy is, he isn't one for subtlety. But just where is he? After a few moments of scanning around, though, Shoji had caught on to where the owner of the mysterious voice was. He's not anywhere out here. The voice is coming from inside the cage, he clarified. Correct, I am in here, with them. The words prompted all of the parents to scurry to the corners of the cage, allowing the perpetrator to come forward from the back of the cage. He was a tall figure dressed all in black. From his mask, to his suit and cape, even the cowl he wore over his head. He also had on a very wide-brimmed black hat to add to his mysterious nature, as if he had just stepped out of a pulpy comic from the 1930s. At this moment, Tenya pulled out his phone to make a call, only for the man to advise against it. I should mention now that contacting your school or the authorities is not permitted. And I'm afraid little Denki's quirk cannot help you either. What the hell, man? Denki was now quite petrified. This guy somehow knew his name and what his quirk was. Izuku's brow furrowed at that. Kaminari, if he knows about your quirk, it stands to reason he knows about all of ours, too. Indeed. The villain went on. Fleeing or sneaking outside help is also forbidden. Any of you attempt to run, and it will be your respective parent that pays the price. Ogura rattled the bars of the cage, not liking the sound of that. Dang it. Can't do a thing about these solid bars. Dad, please. Ochako beseeched, feeling utterly helpless. Don't do anything reckless. Directly next to Ogura, Yua called out to her daughter. Help us, Momo. You mustn't panic, mother, remain calm. The creation user brought a hand to her chest, shaken by the shocked state of her normally composed mother. Next with Yua and Ogura as well was a large man with a big, toad-like head, though he had human skin. Obviously, this had to be Suyu's father. Croak, croak. The frog girl immediately became more concerned. That croak means danger, ribbit. Given the distress in Sue's voice, it was enough to make everyone worried. She was the most level-headed student in 1A, after all. Their teacher, dead. Their parents, hostages. None of it felt real. However, while most everyone was in panic mode, Izuku and Kyoka were more angry than anything else. This had been the second time their parents had been put into a perilous position in the same month, and they were both laser-focused on the problem at hand as a result. How did this happen? Izuku seethed. Why is it happening? The masked man spoke again. An easy question to answer. I flunked out of UA. Hi. Gaining entry in the hopes of becoming a hero was all I ever had. That an excellent specimen such as myself failed is proof enough that this world is cruel and misaligned. Imagine that. Me, a dropout. He pointed at the teens. However, if left to your own devices, only the brightest futures await you children, that's why I. Oh, shut the hell up. Kyoka snapped, shutting the villain up. That's your stupid sob story. That is the whole reason why you felt the need to hold all of our parents hostage. She smacked her forehead. I don't think I've ever heard anything more self-centered in my entire life. And I've heard Bakugo's tirades. Exactly. Katsuki exclaimed, gritting his teeth at the villain. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I agree with ears. Screw your little tantrum, it's time we blew you to Kingdom Company. Wait, hold on, what did you say about me going on tirades? Kyoka sighed and shook her head. And you were doing so well, too. Can we just focus on the asshole who's got our parents? Fine, but I won't forget that remark. Now let's go. With that, Bakugo put on his indomitable grin, igniting his hand in a series of small explosions as he dashed to the edge. He was about to let his fiery momentum carry him across to the platform, when, yeah. Kyoka stuck him with one of her jacks right to the back of the knee, bringing him to a halt. RRGGH. What the hell, ears? Dude, the hostages. Kyoka reminded. Ya know, our parents. He's got them right where he wants them and can do anything if we act out of line. Upon second glance, Katsuki saw that the villain had grabbed his own mother, Mitsuki, by the arm. He clicked his tongue in annoyance, but even still, even Kyoka could see that there was some etching of worry on his features, even if it didn't extend to his words. Damn it. Great job getting yourself caught, hag. And just like that, Mitsuki went from abject fear to intense rage. I've told you a million times not to call me, hag, ya little punk. Wow. Eijiro uttered as everyone's gaze was brought to Mitsuki at her outburst. See the family resemblance. That's supposed to be a compliment, broomhead. Katsuki retorted. But what they failed to notice was that, inside the cage, Inko was muttering something to her best friend, Mitsuki, please, we're hostages, remember? Oh, whoops. Mitsuki blinked. True enough. Pipe down. The masked man said, giving Mitsuki a light shove back into Inko, though his eyes beneath the mask belied his glare with an apologetic gaze. Back with the teens, they were just impressed with the moxie that Mitsuki displayed. That woman has nerves of steel. Tenya commented. Hey, yep, Aunt Mitsuki, same as ever. Izuku concurred, which earned him several intrigued eyes and a death stare from Katsuki. Anyway, we should go by her example and not be scared. We should retaliate, even if it's not in a direct way. Putting on his best commanding expression, Izuku called back to the villain. What are you after here? What am I after? One thing only. The villain raised a single finger. The utter destruction of you golden children and your bright futures. And slaughtering your parents while you watch is just a fun way to do it. Ojiro felt his jaw clench, both in fear and frustration seeing his own mother unable to do anything in the case. All this, just to get to us. You got beef with us. Kirishima raged, hardening his fists and bashing them together. Then bring it. But leave our folks out of this. The villain shook his head. Oh, but it isn't your bodies I aim to destroy. No, it will be that much more painful when your parents suffer and you would-be heroes have no body but yourselves to blame. The students could practically hear the sneer under the man's mask, which only made them more upset. If you truly walked the path of a hero once, then stop this foolishness. Momo screamed, unable to contain herself. Mina backed her up heartedly. Exactly. And you're headed for the slammer once all is said and done. Oh, I have no intention of escaping, the villain clarified. After all, I have nothing left to lose. So, for my final act, I might as well savor your descent into agony as you watch your parents perish. He turned to the cowering crowd of adults in the cage with him. Now, which one should I start with? As the man monologued, though, Izuku was busy thinking up a strategy. Getting our parents out of there means doing something about the villain. But dealing with him means we need a way to shield the hostages. Unbeknownst to even himself, his thoughts turned into his signature rambles. But it's not like we can free them without noticing, the cage is too exposed. No blind spots, plus it's about 10 meters to the platform across the pit. He's sure to spot us making a move. Darn, I've got nothing, CHNK*, yeah. Removing her jack from his neck, Kyoka brought Izuku out of his own head. Shish, keep it down, or he'll hear you. Alright. Izuku bowed apologetically. Sorry, Kyoka, couldn't help it. No ideas then, Midoriya? Tenya asked quietly, with Shoto, Keita, Ochako and Momo huddling around them as well. Seeing the greenette shake his head, Shoto nodded in understanding. Alright, then we will need to find some way to distract him. But, right at that moment. Honk honk. Everyone let out a gasp at the loud horn that blared out from behind them, prompting the entire class to spin around. There, much to the relief of Izuku and the others, was none other than Optimus, rolling straight toward them at max speed. Orion. Denki caught himself, waving down the freightliner as it approached. Haha. Yes. Everything's gonna be okay. What the heck is he doing here? Ojiro did a double take, along with half of the class. He's the one who brought us to school today. Keita explained with a wide grin. And thank God he did. Orion. Help. Thankfully, Orion had every intention of doing so. Hold on, kids. I'm almost, CHHHKT, WHRR*, HHA. All at once, Class 1A's hopes sank as they watched the street directly in front of them open up, and unfortunately, Optimus didn't stop soon enough. All they could do was watch as he and his entire truck plummeted into the inky darkness below. And then, crash. The teens gasped in horror, with those closest to the Autobot leader shouting, "No!" Izuku rushed to the edge of the opening, screaming, "Orion!" desperately into the dark abyss. "Mwahahaha. Did you think I didn't plan for that?" the villain exclaimed from the cage, thrusting a finger toward the class. "I noted Mr. Pax's presence even before you children arrived. Consider that my contingency plan in case anyone else decides they want to be the hero here." Izuku was about to go ballistic, as tears began welling up in his eyes, but thankfully, the sound of Optimus' voice gave him hope. "Kids. Oh, Orion." The Greenette gasped, prompting his classmates to stare down into the open hatch as well. "You're alive. Wow, that's impressive," Zero noted. The Autobot leader called back, "I am alright. But my rig's been totaled. Even if I make it back up there, I won't be of much help to you, I'm afraid. I will try contacting the others to see if they can get here, but until then." As his thoughts cleared, Izuku remembered that it'd take more to take Optimus out than just a massive drop, but he had to keep up appearances for the rest of the class. Half of the class knows, the other half doesn't. We should strive to keep it that way. With that, Izuku took a deep breath, his resolve steeled in that moment. "Okay then, I guess we'll have to handle this ourselves, then." "Are you sure?" Prime shouted. "It's the only way," Izuku asserted, with the rest of the class finding their own nerve as well. "They have our parents, so we can't just sit by and do nothing." After a few seconds, Optimus ultimately agreed. "I cannot argue, Izuku. Just please, be careful." With a final nod, Izuku replied, "Right," before turning his attention back to the class. "Okay, so back to what we were talking about. We need a distraction. Ahem, perhaps Mwa could be of some assistance." The team's attention shifted to Aoyama, the glittery blonde student wearing that seemingly permanent haughty smile of his. "Stand back, friends. With my glorious shine, I'd say being distracting is part of my expertise, non." He struck a pose and gave his classmates a pretentious wink, which Kyoka could only be annoyed by. "If the shoe fits, I guess," she deadpanned. "I'll take that as a yes." Aoyama practically pirouetted toward the edge of the pit, striking even more flaunty poses. This unsightly crime simply won't do. After all, who could possibly commit such evil while looking upon my beautiful visage? "We'll help out, too," Eijiro insisted, with Denki, Sato and Zero joining him. "For our parents, right, guys?" He received a collective, "Yeah," from the group as they joined Aoyama, shouting obscenities at the villain. As the distraction commenced, Shoto leaned toward Izuku. "This should be your chance. They all know we're in a tight spot, so our only chance would be a sneak attack from you." "Think so?" Shoto reassured Izuku with a nod. "You're good at it. Smashing the unsmashable and all that." A determined grin came to Izuku as he balled a fist. "Right, gotcha." With that, he turned his attention back to strategy making. Sneak attack. Gotta get the drop on him and pin him down, if only for a second. Enough time for Iida and Kachan to get over there, at least, and then, the idea came to him. Of course, it's all about sneaking. He beckoned 3 of the class's girls to come over. "Yaoyorozu, Uraraka, Hagakuri, I need you for this." Once he explained his plan to them, Momo was behind it in a heartbeat. "A stun gun. That's brilliant. Yeah, I was thinking of something pocket-sized, just so it could stay under the villain's radar." Izuku balled a fist, but still with plenty of oomph, "You know. I can do that, yes." Within seconds, Momo produced the device from her arm, handing it to Izuku. "I made it brown so he's less likely to notice." Izuku bowed in gratitude. "Great, thanks, Yaoyorozu." His focus went to Toru next. "And Hagakuri, I'm going to have you take this over across the pit. I'm going to have Uraraka float you over, and from there, I'll sneak up and shock him." Toru pumped her arms, psyching herself up to do it. "Yeah, that sounds like a great plan, Midoriya. Just, gimme a sec. Gotta make sure I'm totally out of sight." To that end, the invisible girl began taking off her school uniform, prompting Izuku to look away bashfully. Of course, he knew that it didn't technically matter since there was nothing to see, but it was still a girl undressing in front of him. Kyoka couldn't help but roll her eyes. HMPH, well at least he's got a sense of modesty. Once Izuku felt a tap on his shoulder, he brought his head up and saw nothing. Though by the sound of her breathing, he knew that Toru was right there in front of him. I'm ready. The one for all inheritor readily passed the stun gun off to her, allowing Ochako to handle the rest. You ready? Let's do this. Toru confirmed, allowing Ochako to touch her shoulders and send her floating over the pit full of gas, all while the boys continued to distract the villain. As Izuku sent out a silent prayer for his plan to work, the villain groaned in irritation, nearly at his wit's end. So much so that he failed to notice the weapon landing directly next to him, Toru having crouched down to remain as out of sight as possible. I said silence. The man barked. Do not make me repeat myself again. He set his sights on a brown-haired woman in the corner. Perhaps the most boisterous child's parent should be the one to die. Then you might see things differently. Toru tightened her lips, leaning in ever so slightly, centimeter by centimeter through the bars. Almost, she was mere inches away from his leg, her finger on the trigger to make the stun gun crackle and spark. But before it could make contact, the villain whirled around, kicking it away and making Toru gasp. Ah. HMPH. It seems the invisible pest has wormed its way over here. Shaking with rage, the man threw open the cage door and stepped out, drawing a lighter from inside his cape and igniting it. I had hoped to serve up individual doses of suffering, but no matter. We will all dine in hell, together. Don't do it, Izuku screamed, only for his pleas to fall on deaf ears as the man dropped the lit igniter into the gasoline, transforming the pit into a raging inferno. No. A blast of hot air entered his lungs and singed his cheeks, watching in vain as the flames began to grow higher and higher. Izuku! Inko cried out, extending her hand from the cage. Izuku reached back instinctively, but a gust of wind fanned the flames even higher, obscuring his mother from view. No, ACH. Before he could succumb to despair, Izuku was brought out of it by a sudden jab to the shoulder. It was Bakugo, and he met his childhood friend's eyes with anger and determination. What the hell are you doing, Deku? You really that stupid? His grim scowl twisted into a vicious grin as he eyed the villain across the way. This is the perfect chance, dumbass. He spun toward Ochako and pointed at her. Pink cheeks, get me floating. Having no time to argue, Ochako did as he demanded and he rocketed toward the villain using his quirk. Kei-Kachan! Izuku exclaimed. Just then, an icy blast shot past all of them, sticking the villain to the ground so he couldn't get away. Though it also almost hit Katsuki, which he took issue with. Hey, careful with that, you half-and-half bastard. Shoto ignored Bakugo's chiding as the explosion user diverted his sights back to the villain. Ya like wearin' black, why not try black and blue? He then tackled the villain to the ground, successfully pinning him. Well, I guess that's one way of doing it. Kyoka furrowed her brow as she nodded to the others. Let's get over there, too. Agreed. Todoroki, Tokiyami, follow me. Once he got Ochako to make him float as well, Tenya used his engine to rocket over the gap, with Shoto and Fumikage following suit. Hey, I ain't about to be left out of this. Keita insisted, bringing out her pterodactyl wings to fly after them. Izuku leaned forward, allowing Kyoka to climb onto his back. Though before they leapt over, Ochako approached them with pleading eyes. Please, make sure my dad is okay. Of course, Kyoka said, she and Izuku smiling to her reassuringly. Be back in a jiff. At her word, Izuku activated full cowling and they were over the gap in a single bound, meeting with the rest of the group. Kyoka wasted no time getting off Izuku and rushing up to the cage. Mom. Ha, Kyoka. Reaching through the bars, Mika was visibly relieved, with the rest of the teens, respective parents meeting them as well. I can't believe this. You'd think they'd take more precautions after the UJS incident. The younger earphone jack user grimaced at the reminder. Yeah, I'm gonna have a chat with the other teachers once all this is over. But don't worry, I'm here to save you. But then, her eyes spotted the lock at the front of the cage, where she realized that getting in wouldn't be easy. Gah, damn, it's an electronic lock. Anyone know how to hack into this thing? Unexpectedly, Keita was the one to respond. Oh, don't worry, I've got the perfect lock pick. From her back end, a massive ankylosaurus tail emerged, which she raised up high in preparation. Right here. Stand back, everybody. The adults all did as she said and she clobbered the lock right off, along with smashing the doors wide open. Alright, everybody out. The first one to sprint out was, of course, Krista, who embraced her daughter right then and there. Ah, Mom, seriously. Oh, my hero. The paleontology professor declared. After Izuku greeted his own mother, he quickly went over to the explosive blonde. Kachan. Katsuki was still pinning the man down, using small explosions to keep him in check. This shit-eating punk's not so tough, he balked. Got him handled, all on my own. Just then, Mitsuki dashed in and shouted at him. Katsuki, don't say shit. Buzz off, hag. From there, the mother and son got into a shouting match, the former foregoing any celebration of being freed to berate her son. Izuku forced a weak grin at the bickering duo before noticing that the villain had pulled out a small device from within his cape. What? Hold on. Izuku gasped, reaching down, but it was too late. The villain's thumb came down and hit the device with a click, causing an explosion from below, and the platform they were standing on began to sway unstably. Gah, what did you do, damn it? Bakugo snapped. As I said, the gates of hell await us all. The villain's response sent a chill down all of their spines. This guy really is nuts. Kyoka concluded. He placed explosives in advance. Back on solid ground, Ojiro called out to the group. Hey, the base below you is collapsing. You've gotta get off that platform, ASAP. They could see that they were using fire extinguishers that Momo made to put out the fires, but that wouldn't be much help with the precarious position that they were in. Dang it, we'll never kill the flames in time at that rate. Ochako grumbled. Rather than extinguish the inferno, perhaps a more rational solution, Momo pondered before an idea sparked in her head. Ah, I've got it. As the creation user got to work, Shoto began putting his own plan into motion. It wasn't much, but he was using his ice to create a tendril that latched onto the pit's outer edge, keeping the tower upright for the time being. But even so, the ice wasn't going to last for long, and neither would Shoto be able to keep the cold up for an extended period. Meanwhile, Iida was busy gathering the parents. Ladies first. Please, grab a hold of me. Inko was reluctant, however, keeping close to her son. But. Mom, Izuku gave her arm a comforting squeeze, wearing his best smile. I promise, I saved you once already. I'm gonna do it again. Ha, Izuku. Inko began to tear up, seeing her son so confident. Shoto's voice rang out as his ice tendril began melting even further. Damn, Midoriya, whatever you do it soon. He poured on the power to thicken the ice bridge, but it just kept melting away. Ice bridge, slipping, sliding. And just like that, things connected in Izuku's mind. That's it, we need a slide. Tenya, though, wasn't in the mood for that. Stop joking around, Midoriya. There's no time for playing. No, Iida, a slide like from our rescue training. The evacuation chute. Right, we just need a way to slide everyone across the ice bridge before it gives out. Shoto wasn't so certain about the plan, though. I doubt there's enough time for Yaoyorozu to create a tarp that big enough. It's nearly ready, actually. Momo's announcement managed to take everyone off guard, even more so when they saw the massive tarp come bursting out of her back, ripping through her shirt. I've been working on this fireproof sheet since a few moments ago. Uraraka, Shiro, it's your turn now. Okay. Ochako gave the tape her magic touch before passing it to Shiro. Here we go, who then proceeded to use his tape quirk to sling the tarp across the pit to the others. Seeing his own opportunity, Tokiyami summoned his own quirk. Grab it, Dark Shadow. The bird-like entity emerged from under his clothes and lunged forward. Aye. Dark Shadow caught the tarp and passed it to Izuku. Thanks. Waving across the way, Izuku expressed his gratitude to Momo. Should have known you'd be on top of things, Yaoyorozu. After getting a thumbs up from her, he proceeded to lay out the tarp in front of the adults. Okay, everyone, please climb aboard. With the ground swaying more and more by the second, the parents wasted no time in complying. You here with us, Hagakure. He received a touch to his shoulder from thin air. Sure, let's get out of here. Izuku couldn't agree more. Iida, use your engine to pull from the front. The rest of us will push from behind. And Todoroki, you keep blasting your ice until the very last second. Shoto gave an affirming nod as Tokiyami inquired, what about the villain? Right here. Katsuki lifted the helpless man off the group, all the fight having seemed to have left him. Let's go, you. Any funny business and you go boom, got it. The explosive blonde shoved the man onto the tarp, allowing Kyoka and Toru to take him from there. The ground suddenly heaved beneath them, leading Tenya to grab the corners at the front of the tarp. Here I go, Midoriya. Once everyone was in place, and the ice bridge was thick enough, Tenya began powering up his engine, big time. No holding back, torque over, reciproburst. Boom, a pair of explosions and streams of sooty smoke propelled Tenya forward, with Izuku, Bakugo, Keita and Tokiyami pushing from behind. The four of them were doing their best to match their class president's contribution, with even Dark Shadow helping by lifting the rear corners of the tarp. The group flew across the ice bridge with Shoto climbing aboard at the last possible second, with Tenya's feet reaching the opposite side before the parents even had a chance to scream. Yes. Alrai. Whoa. Just as Ochako's prayers seemed to be answered, though, the tower in the center crashed, taking the ice bridge with it, leaving Izuku and the others at the rear to fall and dangle from the edge of the tarp with no footholds to speak of. Ah. Oh no. Out of Izuku's back pocket, the pages of his letter fell into the fire below, though obviously, he was too preoccupied to notice. Sensing the tarp might fall, Tenya braced himself in place while Kyoka, Ochako and the others rushed back to help pull them up. Hold on, celery stick. At the count of 3, the class yanked the tarp up, pulling their classmates back to the surface. Only for Inko's grip on the tarp to slip at the sudden jolt, causing her to fall into the pit. Ah. No. Mom. Izuku reached out, ready to let go of the tarp himself, only for the black-clad villain of all people to lunge out and take hold of Inko's arm, gripping the edge with his other hand as they hung over the flaming precipice. Using all his strength, the man hoisted them both back up to the surface, where Izuku and the others stared dumbfoundedly. She's safe. Izuku. Rushing for her son, Inko fell into his embrace. Oh my gosh, are you okay? Am I okay? I should be asking you that. A sigh passed the boy's lips as he smiled at her. But yes, I'm alright, he allowed his mother to weep into his chest, both completely relieved and tired after the whole ordeal. But even so, Izuku kept his sights trained on the villain. But you, what was all that about? The man chortled and nodded to him. Congratulations. The exercise is over. The exercise. Eijiro thrust a finger to the black-clad man. Someone grab him. We gotta contact the school. Denki's features became pale at another thought. And, we'll have to find where he stashed Mr. Aizawa. The students could feel their insides churn at the thought, until a familiar, listless voice piped up from the rubble not far away. Me. I'm right here. The students all became wide-eyed as they saw Aizawa emerge from the debris, tiredly sauntering his way over to them. Now, explanations. It was a ruse. All of it had been one giant, elaborate ruse in the form of an exercise tying into their recent rescue lessons. Everyone had been in on it, their parents included, and apparently the villain was simply a local theater troupe actor. The students couldn't believe it, to say the least. And that's when Izuku realized. Wait, if everyone was in on it, does that mean? *WHRRRRR. As if on cue, a hydraulic lift began to rise up from underground, bringing Orion Pax and his rig back to the surface, none the worse for wear. The man wore a proud smile and extended a hand to the students. My deepest compliments to all of you, Class 1A. Excellent job in completing this exercise. O.P., Orion, you were in on this, too. Kyoka exclaimed. Indeed, and the rest of the team were clued in as well. That is the true reason why they could not take you to school today. Orion approached the students with a knowing grin. Because then, you would not have been as concerned and driven as you were to rescue your parents. And by taking myself out of the picture upon my immediate arrival, I could just tell that your determination was only increased. I apologize for being deceitful for lack of a better word. Mina and the girls narrowed their eyes at him. Yeah, and here I thought you were supposed to be against the whole deception thing. Momo was keen to let her own thoughts be known. Yes, don't you think this was a bit much? She spun around to Aizawa. I mean, one wrong move and somebody could have gotten terribly hurt. Or worse. Orion's brows furrowed guiltily. Momo, Mina, I understand your concerns, believe me. But sometimes, the best lessons are built on the back of deception. Rest assured, though, none of you nor your parents were in any real danger. Exactly. Aizawa asserted, still completely nonchalant. We were prepared for the worst, so no, it wasn't a bit much. Besides, pros are no strangers to danger, so an exercise with lower stakes wouldn't do you much good. I suppose that's true. Momo conceded. Were you scared? Scared for your mother? Yes, quite. Aizawa nodded again. Words alone can't express your love for your families. When faced with losing them, however, this provided that valuable experience. He glanced from student to student. A proper rescue demands strength, skill, knowledge, and decisiveness. But emotion can easily cloud judgment. Anyone hoping to become a hero can't very well be flustered by a family member in danger. This exercise, under the guise of Parents' Day, was meant to teach you all just that. Momo bowed her head in understanding, along with the rest of the class. Yes, sir. One more thing, it's not just about keeping a level head. Aizawa continued. The people you aim to save, their lives are more than just their own. They too have families waiting for them to come home. Take that to heart. Again, the class collectively bowed and said, yes, sir. Now, though every hostage was rescued, this could have gone better. Aizawa's next point made everyone double-take nervously as he listed off. You struggled far too much against this single opponent. Wasted too much time. And the stun gun, hardly the most rational option. Choosing to distract the villain by talking to him was an unrefined approach, and it meant putting your eggs into one basket. I've got plenty more to say, but for now, you all passed. By a slim margin. The class let out a united sigh, mostly out of exhaustion, but also relief that they had passed. I want one page on what you've learned from this, due tomorrow. Amongst the instant wave of grumbles, Tenya's hand shot up. And what of the letters of appreciation? Another one of your rational deceptions, to disguise the true intent of this exercise, sir. Aizawa peered back to the class president. Well, didn't writing that letter get you thinking about your family more than usual? It did, indeed, Tenya affirmed, instantly persuaded as the end of period bell rang out. We're done for today. Parents, thank you for all your assistance. After the teacher and adults exchanged bows, the students began drifting toward their respective parents. Tae met her son with a bright grin. Tenya, that final dash was incredible. Only thanks to the orange juice you squeezed for me this morning, mother. Tenya replied. Ogura met his daughter with a pat on the back. You good, Ochako? Relieved, mostly, Bleg. The brunette promptly yacked on the sidewalk, her nerves getting the better of her. Even so, the father gave her all his support. You did great, honey. URF, thanks. Meanwhile, the Bakugos were engaged in a war of words. Why's your mouth so goddamn foul, boy? Mitsuki raged. Learned from the best, hag. Katsuki retorted. I got it from you, though. Far from the squabbling mother and son, Fuyumi was busy talking to her little brother, who had grouped up with Keita and her mother, too. We're lucky it was just me here on Parents' Day. Mom might have fainted right off the bat, having to play a hostage. She received a silent nod from Shoto before turning to the Kiryus. But I gotta say, it's so nice to see you too. Likewise, Fuyumi, dear. Krista and Keita bowed. How is your mother? The young woman leaned over to her brother and nudged him with her elbow. Doing pretty well, especially since this one started visiting more frequently. Krista brightened up at that. Well, that's so nice to hear. I hope I get to meet her one day. Just then, Aizawa came walking over to the group. Excuse me, Miss Todoroki. Fuyumi perked up as he addressed her. Here at UA, most of our basic hero training classes are recorded, and this one is no exception. If you want, I could give your brother a copy of the footage tomorrow. Wow. Could you, really? There's no harm in having the rest of your family view it. Thank you so much. Fuyumi bowed again as Aizawa walked away, facing her brother yet again. He must have realized that I wanted Mom to see it, but couldn't bring any recording stuff with me into the school. You'll have to thank him later, Shoto. Mom's gonna be thrilled. With a stoic expression, Shoto nodded, though Keita could tell just from his eyes lighting up that he was equally as thrilled. Sure, and yeah, she will. Across the way, Inko was profusely apologizing to her own son. "I'm so sorry I couldn't tell you. Your teacher said it was all part of a larger lesson, so I only wanted to help, however possible." It's okay, Mom, really," Izuku assured with a shake of his head. He glanced down at her navy blue outfit, seeing that it was caked with dirt and soot. That's why she mentioned it getting stained. Boy, I can't believe I didn't pick up on that. Gotta say, though, I think we put on some pretty convincing performances. Mika spoke up, walking over with Kyoka. She gazed upon her daughter with pride. "Sweetie, when you said, 'I'm here to save you,' you came off as a true hero in that moment, though I will say that I think your first rescue this month was a lot more epic, hee." Kyoka rolled her eyes, leaning her head against her mom's shoulder. "Yeah, well, you guys were in real danger back then, so that's to be expected." She eyed Izuku sympathetically. "And Green Bean, sorry about your letter." With a short sigh, Izuku's shoulders slumped forward. Well, what are you gonna do, right?" He focused directly on his mother, though. "But letter or no letter, I just wanna say, I'm sorry for making you worry all the time. But, I gotta keep trying, harder and harder." "Of course." Inko accepted, reaching out to touch his arm as her eyes welled with tears. "And your mom's watching over you. How about some nice katsudon tonight? After today?" "Yeah, that sounds good." Just then, Orion and the masked villain came walking over, much to the Jiro's confusion. Izuku and Inko, however, were looking directly at the masked man, almost expectedly. "I would say that this event wrapped up rather well," the Autobot leader concluded, reaching to the masked man's shoulder. "Though of course, I think we should take a moment to acknowledge his performance as well." "I was gonna say," Izuku raised a brow with a knowing smirk. "Is that you, All Might?" Correcto mundo, young Midoriya. He peered back, checking to make sure that everyone else was leaving the site before removing his hat and cowl, revealing himself to be none other than Toshinori Yagi. "Phew, lemme tell ya, between the all-black costume and the fire, it was getting hot under there." Snapping his fingers, Izuku pointed right at his mentor. "I knew it had to be you. Who else would leap into action to rescue someone like that?" Toshinori chuckled, reminding his protege, "Hee, yes, aside from you, of course. But yeah, I broke character a bit at the last moment there, but what can I say?" His gaze shifted toward Inko, nodding to her. "I couldn't very well stay still knowing I could prevent your mother from such a grisly fate." Beaming brightly to the skinny blonde man, Inko giggled a little and bowed in gratitude. "And I'm very glad you did, Toshi. I had a feeling something was up when that happened." Wait. Everything came to a screeching halt for Izuku in that moment. Did you just call him?" Right, I should have mentioned." Inko cleared her throat. "Toshinori and I have been discussing you over phone chat for about a week now, Izuku. We thought it'd be prudent to exchange contact info in the event that I couldn't get a hold of you." Toshinori explained further. "Gotta say, though, your mother is quite the conversationalist, young Midoriya." Izuku really wasn't sure how to process this, or the fact that his mother and his mentor were laughing in happy unison at the moment. This is weird, definitely weird. All the same, he shook the thoughts away for now. That could be addressed at a different time. For now, everyone seemed happy, so he didn't want to rain on anyone's parade. Well, I guess that makes sense. But still, after this whole thing, I realized that I still have a long way to go. Kyoka stared at her best friend incredulously. "What the heck are you on about, Izuku? You're the one who pretty much took charge of the whole situation." "Yeah, but my stun gun plan backfired and we had to improvise the rest," Izuku reminded. Mr. Aizawa was right, a more rational plan would have been better. And, if All Might hadn't saved Mom, you would have gotten the job done yourself," Toshinori insisted, placing a hand on his protege's shoulder. "Humility's great, kid, but it's starting to get on my nerves." That only made things worse for the boy, though. "Gah, that's the last thing I want, All Might." With a low chortle, the pro-hero winked to Izuku. Haha, that's just a little American joke there, kid." "Which part of that was American?" Kyoka questioned, her mother and Inko giving nothing but shrugs. "Listen, the important thing is to stay humble," All Might advised his student. "But accept genuine praise when it comes your way. All joking aside, you were a force to be reckoned with today." You had the determination to save every last hostage, the composure to put together a strategy, and the leadership to get your friends working together. He gave Izuku a thumbs up. Tough enough to make any villain cry uncle, I'd say. Optimus approached the two, standing beside them. I couldn't have put it any better, my friend. You did incredibly well today, Izuku. And I'm certain that this experience will aid you in your future hero career. Izuku's smile returned at his mentor's praise. Right. Thank you both. Of course. Now, I believe it is time we return to headquarters. Orion ushered the two families to follow him. I'm certain that the other Autobots will be keen to know of your exploits here today. With a hearty agreement, they went to follow the rest back to the school, unaware that they were being watched by someone high atop a nearby building. The mysterious suited man from the day before kept his eye on the group as they departed, his focus still mainly on Izuku like the day before. Very well done, indeed, Izuku Midoriya, he said to himself, raising his head to look off into the distance. Perhaps you do have the right potential for what your future holds. Gather round. The man's eyebrows perked up as a small, mechanical spider approached him, only to then transform into a bulky, flat-screened phone. Picking the device up, he saw immediately who was calling him, and he couldn't help but roll his eyes. Of course, he answered the call, bringing it to his ear. Yes, hello. Hey, it's me, came another man's voice from the other end. Ah, Senpai, I had a feeling you'd be calling soon. He paused for a moment to reconsider. Or, should I call you, Kohai, since I've technically been at this longer than you? It's honestly quite confusing. Does it really matter? The caller's tone was quite brazen, but he got back to business quick. How goes the mission I asked of you? The suited man glanced back down, seeing Izuku and the others leaving the facility. Pretty well so far. The young man with the green hair you asked me to watch over has been progressing fairly quickly. His smile widened a little. He may indeed have the capabilities needed to become one of us. A thoughtful hum came from his colleague. Very good. If he's developing quickly, then maybe he'll stand a chance at what's to come. There you go again with this whole, incoming threat, thing. The man shook his head. What about you, then? You're still watching over that boy with the alien watch and his team, right? And you said that they have a writer among them. 2 now, actually, the caller replied. It's been a fairly eventful day here. Ah, I see. His brows furrowing in confusion, the man asked, question, though, why assign me to watch over this boy? I would have thought you'd ask your little golden boy to do it since he seems like such a big fan. That got a chuckle out of the caller. K-guy is still fairly inexperienced, despite his demeanor. And besides, he'd be a bit much for that boy to handle if he were to encounter him. That's why I think you'd be a much better fit. There was another momentary pause before he went on. So, can I count on you to continue keeping watch over him? Sure, why not? Though don't be surprised if I bring some friends to help out, in case I get bored. He could practically hear his colleague roll his eyes. Sure, because of course a deity like you would get easily bored. I've got to go now. I think it's almost time that I reveal my presence to the team. Good luck with that. See you. With that, the man hung up and walked across the roof, thinking to himself about what was to come. Izuku Midoriya, we'll see if you have what it takes. The sound of bells rang out and he disappeared in a flash of blue light, almost as if he were never there at all. Down below, Izuku's head perked up right as he was about to leave the training ground, his ears twitching as he caught the faint sound out in the distance. What in the? He stared out toward the cityscape for a couple seconds, but saw nothing. Odd. With a shrug of his shoulders, he pursued Kyoka, All Might and Prime, eager to get back to base and tell everyone of what he'd accomplished that day. Chapter 79, Metal Attraction, Part 1. It had been nearly a week since the Parents' Day incident, as Class 1A had taken to calling it, and since then, things had smoothed back out a bit for the most part. The students were in the midst of redoubling their efforts on their studies, all of them intent on passing so that they could take part in the summer training camp. It was very clear that the whole class had no plans on missing out on this at all, so they were buckling down and studying as hard as they could. Momo had even offered to help tutor some of her fellow classmates, asking them to gather at her place for the lessons. Among those who had taken her up on the offer were Mina, Toru, Ojiro, Shiro, and finally, Kyoka. And, on the final Sunday of June, a week out from the final exams, the 5 of them had made their way to the rich girl's home. When they arrived, though, the former 4 were left slack-jawed at the massive gate in front of them. "Wow, can you believe this?" Toru exclaimed, waving her arms excitedly. Ojiro's hand went to his head, being able to see the Yaoyorozu mansion tower above the treetops. "I dunno if I can. But it is the right address. Seems more like an embassy than someone's home, if you ask me." Shiro commented. "Oh my god, talk about mega mansion," Mina exclaimed in her usual giddy tone. Kyoka, meanwhile, wasn't too surprised. After all, she had been there before. But, even as she reached for the intercom button near the gate, a part of her was still beating herself up for not taking Izuku up on his own offer to help her study. He had brought it up after the whole craziness that was Parents' Day, but ultimately, she had shot him down. "Sorry, Green Bean, that sounds awesome, but knowing how we operate, we'd probably get distracted and caught up in conversation too much," she had reasoned. "Ah, yeah, I guess you've got a point there," Izuku admitted, knowing how much they both liked their chats. "Well, that's perfectly fine. Besides, I'm sure that Yaoyorozu can offer a lot more insight into different subjects than I can. Let's both do our best." The memory made Kyoka smile with determination as her finger reached the intercom. "I plan to, Izuku. Don't you worry about that." However, the very second her fingertip touched the comm button, Momo's voice rang out excitedly from the other end. "I've been waiting for you, everyone," she said, taking Kyoka aback. "Please, come in." Once the gate opened for them, the quintet began making their way down the sidewalk, which was a surprisingly lengthy trek up to the stately manor. But, once they had made it, they were met with 4 people that Kyoka was all too familiar with. At the head of the pack was a certain pink-haired butler with stilt-like bird legs and pink wings sticking out of his back, and standing with him were a blue gorilla man, a blonde oni girl, and finally a tall, black-haired man, all wearing similar black suits. "Oh boy, these guys," Kyoka thought with a knowing smile. The winged butler greeted the group first with a bow. "Miss Jiro, so very nice to see you again." Lifting his head, he nodded to the other teens. "And these are Miss Ishido, Miss Hagakuri, Mr. Ojiro and Mr. Shiro, I presume." "Ah, yeah." Shiro blinked in confusion before leaning toward the punk rocker. "Jiro, you know these guys?" "Hey, yeah, they're the heads of staff around here," Kyoka assured. "They're cool." Mina's eyes immediately lit up. "Wow, a real-life butler. Never thought I'd get to see one." The teens nearly fell over at her blunt comment, as did the winged serviceman himself, but he made sure to keep his composure. "Haha, you're too kind." He cleared his throat and stood up straight. "All the same, I am Takeru Toria. I will be in your service during your tutoring sessions here, so if there is anything you need, please feel free to ask." The blue gorilla made his way forward next, giving the teens a respectful bow of his own. "I bid you welcome, one and all. My name is Maurice, and I'll be your guide around the mansion premises." He gave the teens a wink and a thumbs up. "If there's any place you need to go, bathrooms, telephone, or what have you, I will be at your service." "Ah, thanks." Ojiro smiled back, his eyes trailing over to the blonde woman and black-haired man. "And those two? We're mansion security, kid," the Oni girl said, flexing her neck and popping it in several places, making the teens squirm. "Name's Tony Vista, and I'm Momo's personal bodyguard around here." She elbowed her taller partner in the ribs, though he didn't seem to flinch. "And this here's my partner, Johnny. Don't mind him, he's just a bit of a stiff." Adjusting his glasses, Johnny cleared his throat, keeping his composure. "Ahem, I will choose to ignore that comment, for now." He sent a stern glare to the teens, making them freeze up. "And as for you, you may refer to me as Agent Barker. And if I find any of you doing anything suspicious around the premises, I can assure you that your ejection will be swift. Is that clear?" Raising a shaking hand, Toru saluted, though they were only barely able to tell. Why yes, sir. Understood, sir." Ojiro, Shiro and Mina all mimicked her, causing Kyoka to give a heavy sigh. "Excellent. Now please, follow Mr. Davis and Mr. Toria to the Grand Hall," Barker advised, all while Tony rolled her eyes. The young miss will be waiting for you there. As the group proceeded into the mansion, Kyoka took a moment to address the two security officers. I see that security's been upped significantly. Of course, Barker stated bluntly. Following the events from the week prior, it's more than necessary. Question, though, Kyoka shifted her eyes left and right, making the duo raise questioning brows. Is Momo's uncle still around? Understanding immediately, Tony belted out a laugh. Huh. Oh, you don't gotta worry about Jiro showing up, Miss Jiro, she said with a wink, making Kyoka groan in embarrassment. He's going around Japan looking for crime to stop. My guess is he'll be traipsing around for at least a few more days before he comes back home. Taking a deep breath, Kyoka felt relief wash over her. Good. The man's cool and all, but the last thing we need is him around while we're studying. Isn't that the truth? Barker concurred, ushering her to move forward. Now go. The young miss is waiting for you. Following his instructions, Kyoka followed the bird butler, the ape attendant, and her friends to the grand hall, and grand it certainly was. It had to be about as long as 3 UA classrooms put together, with ceilings about twice as high. There were multiple chandeliers, a fireplace, fancy rugs, and a long dining table right in the center, which they were all seated at once they arrived. Needless to say, the teens were feeling a bit intimidated. Man, I knew Yaomomo was rich, Toru raised her hands. But not this rich. I feel so out of place, said a sheepish Ojiro. It's making me nervous. Yeah, same, Shiro agreed, looking around the room with a shaky grin. Mina, however, was incredibly curious. So, if you're the butler around here, does that mean that this place has maids, too? Gah, Mina, Kyoka snapped. You don't just ask questions like that. Takaru, however, didn't seem at all fazed. Haha, it's not an issue at all. Besides, it's no secret that we have a whole team of lovely maids who help keep this mansion in tip-top shape. He raised his hand to his mouth and called out, right, ladies. As if on cue, a whole battalion of maids in identical black and white outfits filed into the room, with many of them carrying platters full of food and snacks for everyone. The teens left with mouths agape as the maids all replied, yes, sir, Mr. Toria. Then, for the finishing touch, Momo herself came into the room, rolling a little wooden tea cart around with incredibly ornate porcelain cutlery upon it. And one look at her bright, bubbly smile was all it took for the group to relax, her bouncy disposition spreading across the group like a calming wave. Hello, everyone. Is everything to your liking? Oh, yeah, the teens said in unison, feeling completely at ease. Everything's just great. In the back of her mind, though, Kyoka couldn't help but wonder to herself, I wonder how Izuku's doing right now. Izuku was bored, not the kind of bored that was associated with studying, though. Oh no, that subject came easy to him, especially in his own abode. After all, he wanted to make sure that his grade didn't slip on the semester's final exams, lest he be denied the chance of attending the summer training camp with his class. With pencil in one hand, exercise gripper in the other, and his All Might poster encouraging him on with the words, respect, reassurance, rapture, he buckled down and got straight to it. But even then, he had to push the little voice inside his head to the back of his mind. The one that sounded vaguely like the gorgeous tones of a certain rocker. It wasn't until Kyoka had turned him down on his tutoring offer did he realize how reliant he had become on her presence. Nearly every single day since they had met, they had spent it together, and it showed. They'd fitted themselves together, their friendship like two pieces of a puzzle neither of them had known needed before then. Which was why Izuku was feeling the way he was at the moment. He was having Kyoka withdrawal. He had only felt it a little bit during the internship since there was a lot of other exciting stuff to distract him, but now it was nagging at him in full force. It's probably not healthy to rely on one person all the time, though, Izuku said, realizing himself that it wasn't the best stimulant to have. After about 4 hours of studying, Izuku let out a sigh and put his equipment down, pushing himself away from his desk. He glanced up to the clock, seeing that it was still only 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I could probably afford a break, he resolved, pushing himself away from his desk and taking out his cell phone. Scrolling through his contacts, Izuku found the one he was searching for and made the call, which was picked up instantly. Hey, it's me. Just wrapped up my study session for the time being. Think I could hop over? ZRKT, that's a big 10-4, good buddy. Came Bumblebee's response, which Izuku laughed at. Haha, great, I'll be ready soon, see you in a bit. After putting on a simple green t-shirt, a pair of black shorts and his signature red shoes, Izuku grabbed his duffel bag and made his way out the door, telling his mom goodbye and where he was headed. Just be sure to come home early today, okay? Inko advised, giving her son a parting kiss on the cheek. You do still need to study hard for your finals, after all. The boy nodded to his mother with a reassuring smile. Right, I will. Does 6 o'clock sound good? After Inko approved, Izuku was straight out the door and down the stairs, where Bumblebee was currently waiting for him. Ace was another duo that took him by surprise. Yo, Midoriya, Keita waved, giving a big, cheery smile. Hey, Shoto added simply, his hands shoved in his pockets. Izuku's eyes widened at their presence. Whoa. Kiryu, Todoroki, what are you two doing here? Keita placed her hands on her hips with an eager smirk. Hee, why do you think? We're headed to Autobot HQ for the afternoon. Got nothing much better to do since we finished our first study session this morning. Oh, hey, same, actually. Keita reached down and opened B's back passenger door, ushering the boys to follow her. Sweet. Well, come on, let's head over. After Keita and Shoto scooched their way into the back seat, Izuku took his place in B's passenger side, the two partners sharing a brief greeting before they were on their way. And, once they had found a secluded alley, a ground bridge opened up for them, whisking them the rest of the way to Autobot Outpost Omega-1. Where they were immediately greeted by Pink. Hey guys. May's greeting made them all cry out in unison, the inventor practically throwing herself against the windshield. Izuku was particularly petrified, his complexion turning beet red as his eyes rolled backward. May had landed on his side of the windshield, and while her face was plastered more toward the middle, her chest had been smooshed against the glass directly in front of his face. He fell limp in his seat while Keita and Shoto gasped, leaving B completely unimpressed with her behavior. ZRKT, do ya mind? ZRKT, I just got that washed. Oop. Haha, sorry. Pulling herself off the glass, May beamed to the four of them and winked, jerking her thumb over her shoulder. But I've got something super awesome to show you guys. Come on. The group eyed one another before disembarking, with B having to shake Izuku out of him since he was still only partly conscious. Once he was out, though, he was knocked back to his senses and Bumblebee transformed, allowing May to lead the way. I've been working all week on this baby. And what kinda baby is that, Hatsume? Keita raised a brow as they were brought outside. Once there, however, they heard a low chortle directly from their left, and were greeted by a certain towering Autobot. Haha, the kind that I'm certain you'll get a kick out of, Keita. Instantly, the gray-skinned girl brightened up at the sight of her Dinobot friend. Grimlock. Hey, what's going on? She raised a hand to him, looking for a fist bump. A gesture that Grimlock was more than happy to reciprocate. Oh, something pretty big, I can tell you right now. He extended his hand down toward May as he explained. As May said, it's something that she worked hard on all week, and all for my benefit, even if I probably won't use it much. Ah, don't say that so soon, Grim. May wagged her finger at the Dinobot. You never know. There may be some opportunity that'll come around. An opportunity for what, exactly? Shoto questioned. Grimlock eyed May and asked, well, shall I show them? Go for it. May approved with a thumbs up. Standing to his full height, Grimlock began concentrating, making sure that he was calm and centered. Alright, here goes. All of a sudden, his visor went dark and his body became perfectly still, initially sending a wave of fear through the 3-1A students. But then, something began to flicker into existence in front of them, projecting itself out of Grimlock's right foot. Eventually, the projection took shape and solidified, into what could only be described as a T-Rex man. He had a humanoid body build, particularly in the upper torso. His legs were strong and powerful, though while his knees bent like a normal man's, his feet were that of a theropod. He had broad shoulders, muscular arms, and only 3 fingers with a long claw at the end of each. A long tail stuck out the back of his black pants, and finally, he had a Tyrannosaurus head that was proportional to his body, which was comparative to that of All Might in terms of stature. His skin was a dark shade of gray, and he wore a gold muscle shirt over his torso, which allowed everyone to get a good look at his body structure. The holoform, Grimlock's holoform, raised his hands and grinned down to the children. Ha ha ha. Well, what'd you think? Pretty spiffy, wouldn't you say? Keita, Izuku and Shoto were all similarly slack-jawed while Bumblebee's optics went wide in amazement. ZRKT, woo-wee. Now that's, ZRKT, a neat new look for you. Tell me about it. Keita agreed, running a hand through her hair. I thought you said that Shockwave gutted out most of your original hardware to make room for your Dino mode. Mostly, yes. Grimlock confirmed, clenching one of his clawed hands. However, May was determined to restore at least something, so she decided that my holoform projector would be the perfect choice. May crossed her arms, lifting her head proudly. Nothing to it, really. With some help from Red and Signal Flare, it was pretty easy to piece together a new one from what was left over inside him. Even so, though, her shoulders sagged a little. Just kinda wish I could do more than just that. Just seeing what Shockwave's done to you makes me ill. Another chuckle passed Grimlock's saurian lips as he reached down and pat May's shoulder. Haha, don't beat yourself up about it, May. If there's one thing that I can appreciate, it's giving at least a little part of myself back. And don't worry, I'll see to it personally that Shockwave pays for what he's done, someday. You bet he will. May pumped her fists, staring back at the T-Rex man with determination. And once we find your team, I'm gonna make them their own holoforms, too. Izuku raised a hand, curious about something. Question, though, why do you have Dino aspects in your holoform? Shouldn't you be able to make it look like however you want? The question made May bristle a little. Blame the Dino mode programming put in by Shockwave. Apparently, it's affecting the holoform generator, and I can't do anything to override that. Well, it's a good thing that he still wouldn't seem too out of place in society if people were to see him like that. Shoto pointed out. He could just say it's his quirk and that's that. Exactly, young man. Grimlock affirmed, peering down to his saurian humanoid frame. But we'll see if that ends up happening. Right now, how about we? Ahem. The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Optimus Prime, the Autobot leader strolling out of the base with his optics focused down to them. Hello, everyone. My apologies if I'm disturbing anything. Seeing his friend arrive, Grimlock sent him a reassuring wave. Oh, no trouble at all, Optimus. The holoform flickered out of existence and the Dinobot's visor came back on, craning his head down to Prime. Did you need something? Optimus nodded back. Indeed. Red Alert would like to have a word with all available Autobots. And seeing as everyone else is out on patrol. ZRKT, that means us. B saluted before making his way back into the base, ushering the teens to follow. Once they made their way back to the central control room, they saw Red hunched over the computer terminal, typing in commands with one hand while giving brief glances up to the screen. The computer itself seemed to be displaying some sort of moving cone-shaped thing, which only piqued their interest. ZRKT, what's up, Doc? A short hum passed through Red Alert's vocal processor, all while taking in what he saw on screen. It's curious. I've detected an extremely unusual magnetic flux. This is quite the oddity, for any planet. Have you pinpointed its origin? Prime inquired. I have. It's in the middle of the Arizona desert. North America. That news made Keita's eyes light up. Ooh, sweet. I'm sensing a field trip coming. WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHKT. The gray-skinned girl was cut off when the sound of stereo transformations could be heard outside, along with the unmistakable noise of bickering. Do you seriously have to be this difficult? Came Strongarm's clearly annoyed shout. Well, do you have to be such a stick in the mud? Followed Sideswipe's retort. I'm sorry, but you were the one who chose to run that stop sign. It wasn't long before they saw the squabbling duo come stomping around the corner, though they weren't looking where they were going. Instead, their optics were locked on one another with equally annoyed glares. So as far as I'm concerned, you deserve this chewing out. Strongarm said, prodding Sideswipe's chest with her finger. I thought I saw a con ahead of me. Sideswipe argued, raising his arms at her. What would you want me to do, let it get away? You seriously thought that hatchback was a Decepticon? It was black and purple. Not every con wears black and purple. And no self-respecting Viacon would use a hatchback alt mode, punk. Strongarm prodded Sideswipe's chest again, this time a bit harder. And that's when Sideswipe began pushing back. Who are you calling, punk, narc? By that point, Strongarm pushed back, too, their arms locking up in a struggle even as they kept walking. Though because of that, they weren't watching where they were going, either. Narc, why you little? Stop. And, just like that, everything came to a screeching halt. Because Optimus Prime raised his voice. In a split second, everyone's focus went directly on him, completely stunned at the volume and aggravation behind his tone. And the Prime's body language followed suit, firmly taking hold of Sideswipe and Strongarm by the shoulders like they were misbehaving children and forcing them apart. That will be quite enough, from both of you. The duo stiffened up straight in seconds, the cadet giving her superior a salute. Oh Optimus Prime, sir. My sincerest apologies, sir. Sideswipe did the same, not wanting to be punished. Why yes, sir. Sorry, sir. We didn't mean any. Your intentions, Sideswipe, are not the main subject here. Prime stressed, thrusting his finger down to the floor. It's what the two of you almost did that matters. The younger Autobots were confused, until they craned their heads down, seeing that their feet were only mere inches away from Izuku and the others. If you had taken a single step further, or worse, got into a fight, you could have crushed our friends. Needless to say, Sideswipe and Strongarm were horrified by what they had almost done. Gee guys, geez, I can't even begin to say how sorry I am, the former lowered his head. Strongarm clenched a fist at her side, frustrated at herself for not noticing either. I should have seen you sooner, too. I never would have forgiven myself if I'd hurt you. She shifted her optics back to Sideswipe. Then again, if we'd never gotten into an argument in the first place, maybe this could have been avoided. The Red Lambo brothers' expression soured at that. You implying that I started all this? If the tire fits. Enough. Prime asserted once again, causing the duo to seal their lips and fall back into line. Optimus sighed and shook his head disappointedly. Strongarm, Sideswipe, I have tolerated your arguments up until this point, going so far as to even attempt to cultivate the both of you to try and curb these quarrelsome tendencies. He closed his optics, contemplating what to do next. However, it has become clear that neither of you are taking my guidance to spark. To that end, I have a mission for you both. He pointed to the monitor screen. A simple Recon mission to investigate the source of the magnetic anomaly that Red Alert has detected. The assignment took the duo by surprise, eyeing one another skeptically. That's it. Sideswipe scratched his head. That's the punishment we get. Sounds pretty easy to me. Prime raised his optic ridges at that. Really, now, Grimlock. The Dinobot commander peered down to the Autobot commander. Would you care to accompany these two? Perhaps you can drive the lesson I intended on teaching them in a way that I cannot. After exchanging a knowing gaze with Optimus, Grimlock nodded and accepted the task. Very well, then. Sounds like an enjoyable time to me. He stalked his way over to the duo, casting a shadow over them as he made his visor turn blood red. I hope the two of you are ready. Prime may give out guidance and wisdom, but I tend to involve a lot more discipline in my lessons. He pointed between the two, causing them to flinch. So I don't want to see either of you acting like protoforms out there, is that clear? Otherwise, I'm gonna make you regret it. Why yes, Grimlock, sir. Sideswipe and Strongarm echoed, saluting their mission's superior dutifully. Excellent. Grimlock nudged his chin toward Red Alert. Red, get the ground bridge warmed up. Time to take a little road trip. Kata was all too keen on joining in when she heard that. Haha, yes, I'm all for that, Grim. Let's. Hold it right there, Kata. Grimlock denied with a swipe of the hand. Can't let you on this one. And that goes for the rest of you as well. Just like that, Kata's exciting afternoon plans all went up in smoke. But why? Better to make sure that Sides and Strongarm stay focused. Having more than just the three of us along would distract from the lesson. Grimlock sent the girl a two-fingered salute. But don't worry. Next time, we'll go on a mission together. For sure. As annoyed as Kata was with the decision, she still understood. Still, that didn't stop her from expressing her dissatisfaction, folding her arms over her chest. HMPH, I'll hold you to that, Grim. Good luck with the disciplinary action, though. Grimlock gave her a thumbs up. Oh, you know it. He reached to the back of Sideswipe and Strongarm's necks, hoisting them up despite their protests. Now, shall we begin? Little did the Autobots know that, out in the Arizona desert, a certain pair were already investigating that same magnetic flux. Shadow Striker and Skywarp had been informed of the odd reading earlier by Nitra, and they were keen on finding the source of what it was. Though, of course, neither of them had informed Starscream or Unicronus about it. Just like Thundercracker and the others had, they weren't about to let the latter in on anything that might have even related to trying to get Starscream back in charge. Even if Shadow Striker wasn't all that sure about it. You're certain that this is the best course of action. Positive. Skywarp assured, scanning his optics around. It was late in the night, though fortunately, the full moon was enough to make it at least bright enough to see clearly. If what Nitris said is true and this is the doing of a certain relic, it'd be a bad move to tell Unicronus about it. He'd only use it as more leverage for Megatron's approval. HMPH. The black and purple seeker peered back to his partner. What? You got something to say, then spit it out. I merely find it fascinating that you are so keen on keeping your brother in power. Shadow Striker explained, pointing up at him. If anything, I believe you would make a much more effective second in command than either him or Unicronus. Why not find Z relic and claim all Z credit for yourself? Skywarp pursed his lips, thinking about the proposal. I won't lie, I have considered that, but seeing my brother in the state he's in, it's jarring. I am the eldest of our trio, so it would make more sense for me to be in charge. He glanced down to the shotguns that he held, his grip on them tightening. But I'm more of a soldier than a commander. Always have been. Shadow Striker rolled her optic at that, finding it a poor excuse. Our previous missions together would say otherwise. She knocked her elbow against his arm as she proceeded forward. Just consider it. If anything, you would have my vote. In what would be considered a rare sight, her words got the normally stoic seeker to crack a smile. Appreciated. But let's focus on the mission for now, shall we? After a bit more walking, the duo eventually came upon a large rock formation, one that seemed to be holding together rather loosely. And, sure enough, the reading they were getting was coming from that exact spot. HMPH, all too easy. Stand back. Raising his shotguns, Skywarp unleashed a barrage of blasts upon the craggy outcropping, reducing it to rubble and revealing what lied beneath. The object appeared to be an oversized knuckle duster of some sort, with huge, ridged edges. It had two handles, one for larger bot hands and a smaller one for daintier digits. It seemed relatively simple in design, but it was something that the two cons recognized as something incredibly powerful. Mon Dieu, Shadow Striker said in awe. Nitro was right. The Polarity Gauntlet. Skywarp smirked wildly as he reached down and plucked it out from the ground, inspecting it closely. And it seems in good shape, too. Megatron will surely be pleased we found. Gah. AAA AUG. Unfortunately, both of the cons were suddenly besieged, surrounded by several floating discs that unleashed a powerful shock upon them. The duo were forced to their knees as the discs closed in, upping the intensity of their attack and forcing Skywarp's grip to loosen on the artifact. What is happening? Shadow Striker screamed. However, as the attack halted for a moment, they got their answer. Well, what a fortunate turn of events. The cons snapped their heads up at the two sets of approaching bots, their optics widening in astonishment as one of them picked the gauntlet up. I must thank you both for procuring this for me. Swindle. Skywarp barked, his sights shifting to the Croctobot standing with the con artist. And Skullcruncher. Skullcruncher pulled out the cigar in his mouth, giving a low chortle. Hey, guilty as charged. Been a while, Warp. And what a fortunate meeting this is. Swindle said as he examined the gauntlet himself. You just saved us an incredible amount of time. He reached up to his comlink and said, Swindle to MECH, we've retrieved the source of the fluctuations. We'll be returning to base soon. He deactivated his comm, and then raised his arm cannon straight at Skywarp's head. Just as soon as we deal with you two. Can't have you squealing about this to Megatron, after all. VWOOM. Ah. Swindle gasped as Skywarp disappeared from view, only to then reappear high in the air above. The Seeker whipped out his shotguns again and started blasting at the floating discs, destroying them all in an instant. This gave Shadow Striker the opportunity to kick up and bat the gauntlet out of Swindle's hand, using her grappling hook to reacquire it. I believe we found Z's, so it is not yours for Z taking. She sneered at the two, taking out her rifle and aiming it right at them. I had heard rumors of a pair of rogue cons on Z's planet, but I did not think it would be you two. Skywarp lowered back down, keeping his guns trained on their former comrades. If Megatron will be pleased at this gauntlet's retrieval, just think of how elated he'll be when he sees the two of you. Whoa, let's not get too hasty now, shall we? Swindle implored, quickly going from escalation to de-escalation at the drop of a hat. He raised his hands to his fellow Decepticons with his signature businessman smile. After all, we're all cons here, aren't we? Some more than others, granted, but I'm sure that we can cut a deal. After you nearly took my head off. Skywarp grumbled. Ah, what con hasn't shot at his or her teammates, am I right? The con bot received several deadpan stares at his remark, including from Skullcruncher himself. In the end, though, Skywarp had to admit, fair. But I'm afraid it'll take quite a bit to make us stay quiet. You have any idea how long Megatron's been looking for your sorry aft? To say the least about your team. Shadow Striker added, which made Swindle flinch a little. The sniper noticed it immediately, though, and decided to taunt him. Ah, hit a nerve, did I? I suppose I cannot blame you. I for one would not care to be under Z command of Onslaught myself. She raised the polarity gauntlet, wiggling it in her hand teasingly. That said, we require Z's little trinket, so if you wish to have it, it is out of Z conversation. Swindle's jaw clenched, fighting hard to not show his frustration. Skullcruncher, though, leaned down to share some advice. Kid, listen, as much as getting that gauntlet would be a hell of a boon, if y'all wanna stay on the lam, we can't risk our presence on this planet getting out to Megatron. He nudged his hand toward the purple duo. I say we let him have it in exchange for their silence. What'd you say? Skywarp could still hear the Predacon, and what he gleaned was something he'd be willing to work with. Sounds like a decent deal to me. We take this gauntlet and we don't say a peep to Megatron. What'd you say, Swindle? HMPH, well. Kerpow. GGH. Unfortunately, all negotiations were cut off by the arrival of a rocket that came crashing down between the two con groups, sending them sprawling backward as it blew up. Skywarp activated his jets and stopped himself mid-air while Shadow Striker did a backflip, landing in a crouch. Skullcrusher barely moved at all, though Swindle careened backward into a massive boulder, much to his irritation. Gah, liars. This was a setup. The Seeker vehemently shook his head, denying any involvement. Say what? That wasn't us. Choom! All of a sudden, 4 bright beams of light cut through the dim nighttime light from the moon, shedding a spotlight on the cons. Ah, what the? Nah, it was us. The 4 whipped around, seeing Sideswipe and Strongarm high up on a nearby ridge. The former's shoulder-mounted missile launcher was being reloaded as he spoke, an excited smirk upon his face. And whatever deal you cons were working you, it's over. Strongarm trained her crossbow on the quartet with a serious gaze. You all have the right to remain silent. Put down the gauntlet and back up to the rocks, now. Grah, Autobots. Skullcruncher growled, he and the others bringing their guard up. Keep sharp. There may be others around. Thrusting a finger at them, Sideswipe debunked that. Ha. Sorry to disappoint, Big Green, but we're the only ones you'll be dealing with tonight. So you might wanna do what my teammate here says while we're feeling generous. Otherwise, he slammed his fist into his open palm. We'll have to rough you up a bit. The 4 Decepticons eyed one another, paused, and then the mechs all broke out into hysterics. Ahahaha. Sideswipe and Strongarm were left equally perplexed as Swindle pointed at them and laughed. Ha ha ha. You little scraps actually expect us to be intimidated by that. I've heard worse threats from Petro Rabbits. HMPH, I do not see what is so amusing about it. Shadow Striker shook her head at the Autobots, who were left wide-eyed at the insults. I find it rather sad, to be honest. Wow, they really think that low of us. Sideswipe twiddled his fingers, suddenly feeling much less boisterous. Strongarm rolled her optics and scoffed. It's almost like they see anything less than Optimus Prime as a threat. But don't worry, she smirked down to the cons with a sense of superiority. We'll make you take us seriously soon enough. Ha ha ha. Yeah, sure. Skullcruncher guffawed. And what do you youngins think gonna, huh? Just then, a sharp glint of light caught the Predacons' attention from above. Something that was glowing bright orange, and careening down at them at high speeds. Watch out. His warning was heeded by the other Decepticons, who dashed away just in time, to avoid a huge sword that plunged straight into the sand. And it was a sword that they all recognized fairly well. Number Slagan Way. Swindle was particularly horrified, stumbling away and nearly tripping over his own feet in the process. Hold on, is that? Oh scrap. Skywarp's internals began to twist into knots, knowing full well who this sword belonged to. His youngest brother had informed nearly the whole crew of what had happened, and this only confirmed it. His head snapped back to where Sideswipe and Strongarm were, and sure enough, there he was, stomping his way up from over the ridge. The towering bot's shadow loomed over them, which caused his blue visor to pierce through the darkness of his silhouette and send chills of fear throughout them all. Hee, well, what do we have here? Grimlock chortled, crossing his arms confidently. A bunch of cons trying to broker a deal, GGG Grimlock. Swindle cowered behind Skullcruncher, knowing that he didn't have a chance against the Dinobot. The Croctobot himself narrowed his sights at the familiar adversary. Grimlock. Skullcruncher. Been a hot nanocycle, hasn't it? Grimlock nudged his chin toward the green con. One moment, please. He raised a handheld scanning device across the area and it began beeping once he passed it over Shadow Striker, leading him to see the polarity gauntlet on her arm. Ah, so there's our point of interest. Yeah, one of the relics that Alpha Trion sent here. Strongarm confirmed. So, what's the play on this, Grim? Sideswipe asked eagerly. Peering down to the smaller bots, Grimlock wasted no time in relaying his plan. Hey, well, I dunno about you, but I'm going to be holding off Skullcruncher. He's undoubtedly the biggest threat. Skywarp took offense to that. Hey, what does that make me, then? I'm not your garden variety seeker, you big lummox. He raised one of his shotguns and blasted straight at Grimlock's head, only for the Dinobot to bring out his massive energon shield and block it entirely. Okay, message received. Glad you see it that way. Grimlock started his way down the ridge, leaving the two confused. I'll leave the gauntlet to the two of you. Create a strategy and work as a team to retrieve it. He made sure to punctuate his point by changing his visor to red and glare at them. And if I hear any arguing, any at all, there will be consequences. Is that clear? Sideswipe and Strongarm both stood as straight as an arrow and echoed, Sir, yes sir. Good, now, hup. With a surprising bound, Grimlock had closed the distance between himself and the cons, plucking his sword from the ground as he faced off against Skullcruncher. Still got some of those moves, old-timer. With a gnarled grin, Skullcruncher took out his own sword, which appeared to have been sharpened quite recently. Oh ho, it's been years since the gladiator days, but you bet I do. Bring it. Grrrah. On that note, the two large bots began clashing their blades against one another, sending sparks flying with bursts of light illuminating the area with each strike. As their conflict went on, though, the two remaining Autobots were, of course, dealing with their own conflict of interests. So, dibs on the... No, that is not the point of this mission. Strongarm asserted, clasping her hand on Sideswipe's shoulder firmly. Dibs isn't something you call on something this important. What we need is a proper strategy. So please, let's not screw this up. Because I don't know about you, but I'd rather not be punished. Yeah, fair enough. Sideswipe concurred, reconsidering the situation entirely. Let's see, what can we? Strongarm cut off his train of thought as she pointed out toward the battle. Also, you might wanna hurry. Move. The red Lambo brother could only get out a, huh, before he saw what she was talking about. Skywarp had transformed and was diving down from above straight toward them, unleashed a barrage of laser fire. Whoa. Taking the advice, Sideswipe rolled out of the way, only to then be targeted by Swindle and his arm cannon. Gah, geez. WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHKT transforming into vehicle mode, the young warrior sped off as fast as his tires would let him, which prompted Strongarm to do the same as she was targeted by Shadow Striker. Pulling up alongside each other, they tried once again to come up with a strategy. I propose we split off and try to deal with them individually. Strongarm suggested. Yeah, probably best to not have him ganging up on us. After a moment of thinking, Sideswipe finally settled on something. Okay, so how about this? I'll distract Skywarp and Swindle while you go after Shadow Striker and the Gauntlet. Really? Strongarm exclaimed in surprise. You think you'll be able to handle them both? Ha, come on, Strongarm, I thought you knew me better. I'm probably the most distracting bot to ever emerge from Cybertron. I've got this. Admittedly, the cadet couldn't argue with that. You know what? Fair enough. Let's do this. On that note, the duo parted off and headed straight for their targets, with Strongarm doing her best to avoid Shadow Striker's shots before transforming and tackling her to the ground. Ah, why you, ACH. Pulling her legs back, Shadow Striker kicked up and pushed back against Strongarm, the two struggling for supremacy, which was when Shadow Striker got an idea. She reared the gauntlet back and bashed it against Strongarm's chest, forcing the cadet to back off. Ha, I am not certain how Z's device works, but it still has its uses. Even so, Strongarm wasn't about to back down. Yeah, well, it isn't yours to use. As that was happening, Sideswipe was still in his Lamborghini mode, closing the distance between him and Swindle by the second. The con artist kept blasting, but unfortunately, the Autobot was far too fast, which was only getting him more annoyed. Would you Jew? Ah. Hold still. What would be the fun in that then? Sideswipe taunted as he finally closed in and transformed, sliding past Swindle with a smirk. Then I wouldn't be able to make this happen. Huh, what are you? Incoming. Swindle gasped as he remembered, Skywarp was still chasing the Autobot down. He whirled around and let out a frightened yell as the black and purple Seeker dove in and transformed, relentlessly shooting at Sideswipe with his shotguns. Even though Swindle was still in the line of fire. Ah, what the frag? I don't recall this being part of the deal. Skywarp glowered back at him without any sympathy. You still want that deal? Then stay out of my way. Swindle thrust an accusatory finger up at his fellow con. Well, that goes double for you, then, ya halfwit wingnut. What did you say, ya Shanix pinching wire weasel? I oughta, ack. Skywarp's threat was instantly undercut by Sideswipe jumping up onto his back, clinging his arm around the Seeker's throat. Hey, might wanna focus on ME instead of trying to rip into each other. The smaller bot taunted, wrenching backward with all his might to take Skywarp down. Even as Skywarp teleported all over the place, Sideswipe held on, much to the former's irritation. Ack, ow. Swindle. Get him, Hatch, OFF of me. Before he could hesitantly comply, however, Swindle caught something out the corner of his optic, his gaze trailing over to the squabble between Strongarm and Shadow Striker. The two femmes had been engaged in a mixture of fisticuffs and close-ranged gunfight, with the Decepticon assassin having a fair edge over the Autobot cadet. All the while, Shadow Striker not once let her grip on the Polarity Gauntlet loose, swinging it like a bludgeoning weapon. That method was proving effective as, with a rather potent uppercut, she sent Strongarm flying backward and crashing into the ground, leaving her rather dazed. Hun, well, it would seem that the more experienced combatant proved superior. Shadow Striker chortled as she approached Strongarm, aiming her rifle up against the cadet's forehead for the finishing blow. As if there was ever any doubt, Pew asterisk, ah. But just then, Strongarm's crossbow went off, shooting the gauntlet out of Shadow Striker's hand. The sniper was about to go get it, but she quickly found herself tripped up and trapped in a leg lock. Ha, you like that? Strongarm taunted with a grin of her own. That's what the humans call, playing possum. She delivered a stiff punch directly at Shadow Striker's head, though the Decepticon retaliated in kind, leading to another battle of fists. Shadow Striker sneered as they kept battering one another, all while rolling across the ground in an attempt to get to the gauntlet first. Ah, I do not know what a possum is, but it must be a vile creature if ZIS is your idea of fighting like one. Eventually, the two adversaries had managed to roll their way to the gauntlet, only for Swindle to pick it up before they could. Aha! Thank you very much. Gah! Swindle! Shadow Striker snapped, trying desperately to unlock her legs from Strongarm as Swindle ran off. We had a deal. Sideswipe. Strongarm yelled, managing to pull herself free at the last second. Where in the pit are you, VWOOM asterisk, huh, ah. The young bot soon found her answer as Skywarp teleported in and managed to swing Sideswipe over his shoulders and straight onto her, leaving them in a heap. Unfortunately, this did nothing to temper Strongarm's thinning patience. Gah, I thought you said you could handle them. Okay, so maybe I was wrong. Sideswipe admitted, working his way up to his knees. It happens sometimes. Sometimes. As the two quarreled, though, Skywarp and Shadow Striker went in pursuit of Swindle, who found himself cornered but not defenseless. Hee, I think it's time I showed you all how this baby really works. Pressing a button near the handle, the polarity gauntlet lit up with holographic Cybertronian symbols around his hand, all while a powerful orange energy began emitting from the business end of it. Raising his hand, the energy began to expand greatly, attracting every stray piece of metal within the vicinity, which included the Autobots and Decepticons themselves. Sideswipe, Strongarm, Skywarp and Shadow Striker were easily plucked up and raised high up, rendered completely immobile by the weapon. Grimlock and Skullcruncher, though, being much heavier, were being pulled towards it much slower. What? Grimlock stabbed his Energon sword into the earth, digging his feet into the dirt as hard as he could. Is he doing what I think he is? Grah. Stop, kid, Skullcruncher bellowed, plunging his own sword down to keep himself stable. We had a deal going. Relax, Scully. We're just renegotiating, Swindle assured as the trapped Autobots and Decepticons drifted closer, allowing him to get right in their faces. Now, if I hear anything about you squealing to Starscream or Megatron about me being here, just know that this little baby will make it so that I can control whatever you do. He flexed his gauntlet hand a bit, pulling the cons and bots closer together. I can dismantle you bit by bit if I wanted, so not one peep. Understand? Swindle, Skywarp seethed through gritted metal teeth. You're gonna go in the scrap heap for this. The duplicitous businessman simply chuckled and said, I don't think so, before flicking his wrist, sending the four bots flying off into the nearby mountainside, causing a small avalanche that buried them in rubble. No, Grimlock bellowed, transforming into his Tyrannosaurus mode the very second that the gauntlet's effect stopped. With a loud, thunderous roar, Grimlock charged straight at his target, who was left wide-eyed and slack-jawed at what he was seeing. Swindle. With a loud yelp, Swindle dove out of Grimlock's path and hastily transformed, the polarity gauntlet going right into his subspace storage for safekeeping. Scully, let's get out of here. Skullcruncher grumbled, but complied nonetheless, hopping onto Swindle's rooftop to beat a quick retreat. We'll settle the score later, Grimlock. Oh, and welcome to the Big Ugly Reptile Club. Ha ha ha. Grimlock let loose another angry roar and planned on giving chase, but he stopped himself when he remembered his charges buried beneath the rubble. Despite instinct telling him to hunt down his prey, he instead transformed and rushed over to help his teammates. Sideswipe. Strongarm. Speak to me. Or you, Grah. Unfortunately, Grimlock got neither of them. Instead, Skywarp was the first one to break his way out, huffing and coughing out dust all the while. Hawk. Grr, that blasted Swindle. I'll make him pay for, The Seeker's optics grew fearful seeing Grimlock loom over him, the Dinobot's visor shifting from blue to red in contempt. Alright, I think we can both agree that we've got a common problem here, Urk. Give me one good reason I shouldn't rip your head off right here, Skywarp. Grimlock glowered, lifting him out of the ground and high above his own head. Wait, please. Skywarp pleaded, his bravado all but forgotten about. Don't do it, my partner, Shadow Striker, she can vouch for my word. We'll call a truce until we make Swindle pay for what he's done. The gladiator wasn't too quick to buy it, though. That's so. Then tell me, where is Shadow Striker? As if on cue, they heard the sniper speak up, though she didn't sound too thrilled. I am here, unfortunately. Skywarp and Grimlock were taken off guard, seeing no sign of Shadow Striker anywhere. Shadow, where are you? Closer than you think. Raising her hand, Shadow Striker caught Grimlock's attention, leading him to turn Skywarp in his grasp slightly. The black and purple Seeker was still confused, though. What are you talking about? Let's just say that she has your back. Grimlock explained, revealing that Shadow Striker was stuck to Skywarp's back. Literally. Whipping his head back, Skywarp was astonished to see he and his partner were magnetized back to back with each other. And judging by the femme's fed-up expression, she wasn't happy about it in the slightest. Well, this is a problem. Understatement of Z millennia. Wait a minute. Grimlock interrupted, his audio receptors picking up a rustling sound. Their attention went straight back to the rubble, where the rocks and dirt gave way to something rising up from below. And what they saw next was something that would have made Grimlock wince if he could. Oh no. It was Sideswipe and Strongarm, similarly stuck at each other's backs just like the Decepticons. They didn't seem to realize it at first, struggling against one another thinking that they still had something on them. Ow. This rubble's a pain in the aft. Sideswipe bemoaned. Quit complaining. We've gotta shake this off and get after. But when Strongarm turned her head, she was met with Sideswipe's gaze, leading him to gasp as well. Slowly but surely, they realized the situation they were in. Stuck together with no way to break apart. Their features twisted in horror, and their echoed sentiments only reinforced their feelings. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. And this of Season 2 Part 40 of this What If. Hope you guys like it. Do not forget to leave a comment down